Hello guys, welcome back to another video. There's a Football Connect. And what the hell happened in week 26 of the Premier League? Well, I'll tell you what happened. It's the reason why some people are smiling and they're acting like they aren't smiling. I know we'll go into that really into depth, but we had so many interesting games. I'm going to cover one of the games which was played earlier, which is Aston Villa versus Liverpool. Then we also had the Leicester City versus Brentford, Manchester United, Everton versus Manchester United. We had Bournemouth versus Wolves, as well as Ipswich Town versus Tottenham Hotspur, Southampton versus Brighton, Arsenal versus West Ham, Fulham versus Crystal Palace, then Aston Villa versus Chelsea. Also Newcastle versus Nottingham Forest, and lastly Man City versus Liverpool. So this was a huge week in terms of the title race, looking at everything that was happening. But there was some clarity over what's happening in terms of the title race and the relegation, but also brought some craziness in terms of what the top four holds. So we're going to talk about that as well as get into that. But I'm telling you, a lot of good things happened this week. I'm not smiling. Nothing. I'm not really smiling, but a lot of things happening this week, and we are gonna get into that. First of all, Aston Villa versus Liverpool. This was a game which, if you're a Liverpool fan, you will leave that stadium really, really frustrated because you showed clear signs and clear glimpse of exactly what you could offer in the game, and yet you left the game with no points. What caused Liverpool to leave with no points? In fact, they left with 1 point at Villa Park. I felt like it was because of, not being able to push on to the end of the game. Darwin Nunes was missing for days. And in that situation after this game, moving on, it was back in Arsenal's hands, according to Arsenal fans. They were looking at this and saying that if they win, if they beat West Ham and Liverpool loses to City, that's a different ball game. It will look way, way different from what it was in the Premier League. And that was really, really scary to think of. The feeling was not nice at all. The game finished 2-2. Mo Salah scored a goal as usual. Then I also got the second goal after Mo Salah. I actually forgotten about that. But yeah, it was Mo Salah, then Trent Alexander-Arnold, assisted by Mo Salah, by the way. Then Yuri Tillerman scored a goal. Oli Watkins scored a goal to make it 2-2. And it was one of those games that you'll be like, okay, I just want this to move on by. But anyway, we'll talk more into that, and that's how the game was like. Then we move on now to the 26 week for other teams, which is going to be 27 for Liverpool. By the way, there's going to be a new thing that I introduced today, so be ready for that, a new segment. I think you're going to enjoy it, but it's going to be at the end of the video, so be ready for that. Let's talk about what happened on Friday. It was Leicester City versus Brentford in a game which was a must win for Leicester City, for them to even keep putting pressure so that they can be out of the bottom three. But yet again, they were destroyed. They were destroyed horribly, by the way. They lost to Brentford by 4-0. Brentford could have had more goals. A lot of players scored. My former player scored, and it was just a good massacre for Brentford. They destroyed this one, which moved them to number 11, by the way, Brentford, as it looks like they are going to be pushing. But now Leicester City stands in at 17 points, and I'm telling you, if they don't find something to do, they will be out of this league. It's not looking good. Then there was an interesting game which was played: Everton versus Manchester United. And of course, because of the current situation, United are at the bottom as well as Everton. When we were looking at this game, we thought it was going to be a good challenge for United. They'll fight. Remember, they were playing with the teams that were close to them in the league, because Everton are just on top of United now after the game. But by then, they were below United. And United being number 15 and Everton being number 14. And Everton scored two first goals, Beto and Decore. And I'm like, this game is going to be interesting. So many errors, goals going easily. And I was like, what's going to happen in this game? As the game continues, as it progressed, things started to change. And how did they change, you may ask? I'm going to tell you. Everton, for I don't know, they had a free kick. Bruno Fernandes scored. Pickford did not even move. Then another one was a set piece, and it was scored by Ogate. The game finished 2-2. Everton had some complaints. We'll talk about them in the new segment of why Everton had the complaints, especially at the end of the game. We'll talk about that. We move on to Bournemouth versus Wolves in a game which I think everyone knew that Bournemouth was going to be Wolves, but it all went well in Wolves' hands after Bournemouth player picked up a red card in an event which we'll talk about in the new segment. So you should check it out at the end of the video. Then after they went to a man down, the game, Wolves were able to score. Cunha scored, assisted by my countryman. Yes, my countryman, what's his name? Oh, the brain is just really stopped. But he was assisted by my countryman, and the game finished what Imunetsi, who assisted him, and the game finished 1-0 to Wolves, which helped them to move further apart from the relegation zone with now 22 points. Then Ipswich played Tottenham Hotspur. Remember, Ipswich beat Tottenham Hotspur at the Spurs ground. This was the revenge, and really a revenge it was. 4-1 was the beating that Tottenham put on the hands of Ipswich, making it difficult for them to move away from Leicester City, who had just suffered the defeat the day before. And it means that they're stuck on the same points, but all of them are in the relegation zone. It's going to be interesting to see what happens with this. And with Wolves moving away, it's looking like the teams that were which came to the Premier League can all gonna get relegated and go back. It's a crazy league, I'm telling you. It's really a crazy league. So special shout out to Johnson, who scored two. I think he scored 2 goals. It's 2 goals, and Son, who was running around with a lot of things. Kulusevski as well as Jet Spence. I think for Tottenham Hotspurs fans out there, they'll always tell you Jet Spence has been the light in the darkness that they've been, and 3 wins now in a row for Spurs. Now it looks like they are a different team. 2025 is now starting to give a better direction. Ange Postecoglou has changed some of the things, and it's looking really like they can do something special. Southampton versus Brighton. It was a game which was a massacre. Southampton, for us, for those who are watching, we all know that they're already relegated. They were beaten by 4-0 with no response. Brighton toyed with them, destroyed them, did whatever they wanted to do, no response at all. Then Arsenal versus the Hammers, the shock of the week. It finished West Ham 1, Arsenal 0, and Arsenal went home. That's what makes this shocker even worse, way worse than what people are really thinking. Arsenal were expected to be the team that win this game, that sets the record, that put the pressure on Liverpool. Yet they were beaten. And on top of being beaten, they got a red card in a new, this is red card we'll talk also on the new segment that I'm telling you people that is going to be happening later in the video, which caused Arsenal to drop points. And it was now being said if Liverpool wins, they go 11 points on top of Arsenal. Remember, it was 8 points, and Liverpool win, they did. Now it is now in Liverpool's hands as we move on. Fulham played against they played against Crystal Palace, and Mateta is enjoying his best time yet in terms of one of the best players in the league. He helped by assisting the goals, and the other one was an own goal, and the other one was an assist from Mateta to his own teammate, and they won by 2-0. Fulham had no response at home against Crystal Palace. Then Aston Villa played against Chelsea in a game where Chelsea scored early. Enzo Fernandez in the early minute, and they were running everything. According to some Chelsea fans, they were sold a dream. And I'm actually remembering there's a video right now that is just in the backlog, which needs to be released about Chelsea versus Aston Villa, because the change came in when Marcus Rashford was introduced in the second half. And when he came in, 2 assists from Marco Asensio. These 2 loanees now feel like they're at home at this club, and it's amazing to see, and I just can't wait to see how far they can go. But it was a good game at the end of the day. Then we also watched the games as they continued. On a Sunday, we saw Newcastle play in one of the best games of the week that I'm going to really say. It finished 4-3 to Newcastle. They played against Nottingham Forest. Nottingham Forest scored first, Hadoi, then Newcastle scored the second, which was scored by O'Malley. Then from O'Malley, Murphy scored the second goal. Then Isak had the penalty, scored it. After the penalty, scored the last game goal to make it 4. And we went at halftime. The game was 4-1 to Newcastle. Then the second half, there was an inspired comeback, almost a comeback by Nottingham Forest. A first goal which was scored by one of their defenders to make it 4-2. Then the other goal which was scored almost in the end to make it 4-3. They almost scored to make it 4-4, but Newcastle survived. I'm telling you, it was now a push at the end of the day. Then the bigger game, the game of the week, Manchester United City versus Liverpool. So many eyes were on this, especially after Arsenal dropping points in the other game. And I think the way Liverpool approached this game was interesting. Again, with only two strikers in terms of Luis Diaz and Mo Salah. Forwards, no any striker up top. And because according to Arne Slot, Diogo Jota told him that he was not 100% fit to play in the game. But what made this game even more interesting was how Liverpool approached it. They gave City the ball the whole entire game. According to Craig Bailey of ESPN, he said Liverpool toyed with Manchester City, giving them the ball, making them think that they're under control, do their passes, show them the route in which to attack the Liverpool, and they knew how to stop them. Then Salah scored. According to Ian Raj, Liverpool just activated more Salah, who scored and as well assisted in an interesting routine corner, which was scored by Salah after being assisted by Dominic Soboslai with just a small flick. Then that's where the first goal came in. Then in the second half, Dominic Soboslai on an offside position ran, confused Man City defense, stopped, then allowed Salah to get the ball after it was hit by Virgil. Then Salah passed it to Dominic, who scored for the second goal. They scored the third goal, which was disallowed. Mamouche scored a goal for City, which was disallowed for offside, as well as Curtis Jones scored a goal, which was disallowed as well for offside because of what one of the defense of Man City did. This was a complete performance from Liverpool. They are a team which can just play either way they want to, and all the way they do have an impact in change in terms of how the game goes as well as this season. So as this thing stands right now, Liverpool are 11 points as we are now in the table talk. We are going to talk about everything that is happening. The top four looks like this. Liverpool on 64 points. Arsenal number 2 on 53, followed by Nottingham Forest on 47, as well as 44 from Newcastle and Man City to make the top 5. Then we go bottom. Southampton are 9 points, Leicester City 17, Ipswich 17, then Wolves just above them with 22 points. Manchester United did not move, remain 15th. Tottenham Hotspurs have now moved to 12. They are very close to go out of the bottom of the Premier League. Then that's exactly how everything looks like table-wise. Now, what is the new segment I've been talking about? Well, we're going to revisit some of the games which had some interesting decisions when it comes to VAR, and we're going to talk about them. The first one, Everton versus Manchester United. The penalty which was disallowed of Ashley Young. The ref gave it as a penalty, but the VAR turned it against it. Why did it turn it? For me, it was not a penalty. In terms of how the player fell onto the ground, it was very suspect. How can somebody be pulling you backwards and you fall forward? That's exactly what Ashley Young did, and it was turned by the VAR correctly done. So that has to give a good thing for the referees. Then also there was a controversial moment in the Aston Villa versus Chelsea game, which should have been a penalty, but it was not given. It was very similar to the United Everton, but what made the Aston Villa was even more wayward than the United, but it was not given, showing that they are trying to keep the same consistency, which is something that I respect from the referees. Bournemouth versus Wolves had a red card shown to a player who was firstly given a yellow card by the referee. He went in and saw the tackle and gave it as a straight red card, something that I do respect because I think it made so much sense. It was a red card, so it was a correctly given red card. Then Arsenal received a red card, and it was merely Lewis Kelly who got the red card. Why did he get the red card? Because he was the last man on the pitch. The problem, Raya was not nearby, so it was like denying a goal scoring opportunity. It was first given as a yellow card, but VAR overturned it, correctly doing so, and he got a red card. So you have to respect some of the decisions which you have been seeing from the VAR, because there is that sense of, showing that they are doing things the right way. There was a penalty which was given to Newcastle against Nottingham Forest in a way where a player was in the air and the way he moved, he touched the ball. So many Nottingham Forest said that that should not have been a penalty. But in terms of where his hand was, it was on an unnatural position after seeing the ball being hit. If he had dropped his hand, it could have been a different thing. So it was a correct decision. So I think really all in all, in terms of VAR this week, it was correct decisions after correct decision. And sometimes you have to applaud when things like this happen. I want to hear your thoughts in the comment section. What do you think of this week? Of course, the games are continuing, and in fact, they're continuing today as the Premier League continues. We'll talk about that. I won't be able to do the preview, but we'll do what the hell happened in week 27 of the Premier League. Well, 28 for Liverpool. Like the video and subscribe to the Connect. I'll see you on another one where out. Peace. Subscribe to the Connect.